Welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for October 15th, 2019. Item number 1, if we could call the roll.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here.
Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Mayor Mars.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, let's all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 3, any changes to the agenda, Mr. Reynolds?
Just one, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have the updated 2019 delinquent garbage refuse list as of this afternoon. So that will be in place of the similar list that's on 7A.
All right. Councilor Whiting?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Contreras. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 4, consent agenda. Mr. Reynolds, are there any changes, adds, deletions?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilor Contreras?
I'd like to move 10A2 to consent business, please, financial review.
10A2. Okay. Others? Councilor Lehman?
Move the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Brennan. Before we vote, we would read the modified consent agenda into the public record. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These are the consent agenda items for October 15th of 2019. 4A1 approves the minutes from the September 25th, 30th, and October 1st, 2019 meetings. 4A2 approves an updated social media policy. 4A3 adopts resolution number R2019 TAC 111, which changes the November 5th, 2019 council meeting to November 6th, 2019, and that is due to an election. 4B1 approves and ratifies the city administrator's approval of a letter of intent in support of a grant from the state of Minnesota for the purpose of purchasing a turnout gear washer. 4C1 approves a concession agreement with the Shakopee Youth Hockey Association for the 2019-2020 hockey season. 4D1 approves the drainage and encroachment agreements for 5100 Valley Industrial Boulevard South and 3200 4th Avenue East. 4D2 adopts resolution number R2019 TAC 107, which declares costs to be assessed, orders the preparation of proposed assessments, and sets a public hearing for the 2019 Street and Utility Reconstruction Project, which is CIF TAC 19 TAC 003. 4D3 adopts resolution number R2019 TAC 108, which declares costs to be assessed, orders the preparation of proposed assessments, and sets a public hearing for the Wood Duck Trail Reconstruction Project, which is CIF TAC 19 TAC 008. 4D4 authorizes the execution of a professional services agreement with AE2S to perform a feasibility study for lift station number 16 rehabilitation project, which is sewer TAC 19 TAC 001. And 10A2 is the financial review.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I have a motion and a second for the modified consent agenda. It's been read into the public record. There would be no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, now I'd like to call on any resident that would like to come forward and speak on an item not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Mary Isaacson, born and raised in Shakopee. As of 2013, became a business owner downtown, own Babe's Place. So I'm here is, well, I got a little problem and I'm hoping you're going to help me out. I have this drawing that I do down at Babe's on Friday night. And what I'm asking for is permission that I can close the alley, part of the alley, maybe a half a block long, so then I can utilize that for my customers. And I'd like to do it as soon as I possibly could. Like this Friday would be awesome. It is drawing. I know a couple of you have been there. It's a drawing. It's amounting to a lot of people coming downtown. Last week I had 500 people. And what these people are also doing is they're just not coming to my place for a chance. They are going to all the businesses downtown. They're going out to eat, to Turtles, to Pablo's, to Bravas, to Public. They are going to the other businesses, Pullman, Arnie's. I'm bringing 500 people down, and they're walking downtown, which we want. That's a great problem to have. I can't house 500 people in my bar, but if I can have them outside, and they're more than welcome, to be outside. But I'm also asking too that we could barricade it off, and that they will be able to drink their alcoholic beverage if they have it, their pop, their water, outside.
Okay, Counselor Whiting?
Mary, you're looking for 52 weeks out of the year? What are you looking for here?
I tell you what, this deck of cards has been on my wall for 9 months. It's been the last 2 months that I have 16 cards left on my board. I don't know when it's going to go out. Whoever picks that lucky number, then I can breathe and we can move on with life.
It's a busy place down there, that's for sure, and we appreciate you bringing, livening up the community like that downtown. But can we work together on finding a number like during the summer, or a couple times, or when it gets to a certain level, or something that the city can work with, so it's not every week?
Right now I'm at that every week.
Yeah.
Last week I had 432. This week it's 500. It just keeps going up. And I'm at, I got 16 weeks right now. I'm looking at 16 weeks. Could it go out this Friday? Yes, of course it could. It could go out the following Friday. It could go out, I don't know when it's going to go out. But for, 7 months, we were fine. Everything was inside, everything was good. And now we're just sort of hit this explosion of activity. We have not had one issue. We have not had one problem. We clean up after ourselves, and the people like it. And again, I watch them walk in, and they're coming from all directions, and then I see them walk out, and they're going in all directions. And I know they're going to the businesses.
Running
Running
with
out
all
of time.
due respect,
Yeah.
this is a time to hear from residents not on the agenda, and we don't negotiate or take action on this, so I just want to make that perfectly sure. Did you have a follow-up question?
No, I'm fine.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, normally the process that I understand would be that the business would go to the staff and tell them what it is they want to do and what areas they want to close and what barricades and requirements would be, and what time and how many weeks and stuff like that. And then normally the police department would put some restrictions on it, like wristbands with the IDs for alcohol and this area and these types of things. And has that process been followed?
Yeah. Mr. Reynolds?
This will be coming before you on the first meeting in November. I think Mary just wanted to give you a heads up.
Okay. I certainly have no
Yeah.
qualms with putting together successful events downtown. But I'd sure like to follow the same process that we use for everybody.
Is that understandable?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know if that was the way I should be going, just because I'm asking for, I don't know how long I'm asking, for 4 months. I mean, for 16 weeks, and so I thought it should probably be in front of the council, and I will go through the whole process of talking to the police department and all that. Yeah, I've
But
had an
Mary,
event.
this is a very popular event at your location. What is, your building, what is the capacity of the building?
350.
Huh?
350?
Okay. Might need a bigger place.
That's not happening. Right now I'm utilizing, I have an alley behind, and it would be more convenient for everyone if I could move it to the front, the alley on the front versus going all the way through and using the side. That's what I'm using now.
And then you'll have an application coming forward here at our next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments?
We can go down on Friday night and see what's happening.
And win it.
That's right.
Solve the problem.
Warm clothes.
All right. Anything else, Mary?
No, thank you for listening, and hopefully we can work something out.
Thank you.
I hope it goes.
Would like to call on any resident on an item not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Seeing none, we would move ahead then. Item number 6, no business that was removed from consent. Item number 7A is a public hearing, assessment hearing for the delinquent garbage refuge bills from Republic Services. Counselor Whiting?
Make a motion to open a public hearing.
I have a motion and a second from Counselor Lehman. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
Reynolds?
I appreciate it. This is our annual hearing on delinquent garbage refuse bills. You have the updated list in front of you from the modified agenda. As you know, every year we come before you and ask the ability to go ahead and have these bills assigned so we can then collect them. We essentially front the money to Republic, and then it's up to us to recover that funding as part of our contract. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them, but this is...
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, I have one question. I'm reading the memo, and I do recall a $25 administrative cost. It looks like the interest rate has gone up since the last time we did this. I think it's 7.5% now in here, and I think it was 5 or something last time.
I'm not sure if the interest rate has changed, Counselor Lehman.
At any rate, can we check into that, compare it to last year's?
Yep, I can certainly do that.
Okay.
I was not aware of any changes from last year. I do recall last year, there was some concern about the $5 charges.
Yes. I was going to bring that up on the original memo. There was 9 at $5, and now I see the revised list, it's down to 8. I don't know if those are late fees or stub amounts, but with our fee of 25, administrative fee, I'd like to see that taken care of. I'm not trying to pay someone's bill for them, but for $5 and then add 25 seems egregious. Other questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
Well, I'm just asking if the same amount of effort goes into each parcel, then I think the fee should be applied evenly to all.
It's the same process for each parcel regardless of what the ultimate amount is.
I mean, for a $5 delinquency, It's a matter of stopping down at City Hall and saying, here's a $5 bill.
That would apply
Prior
to,
to the time.
right, but that would be for everybody, and I don't, you know, I've seen a $5 late fee on it. I don't know if it came in a day late, I try to balance it too, and you want fair and equal, but it kind of stuck out at me that $5 and it's a round amount, versus, you know, pennies that are on the other ones, and to add for $40. Counselor Brennan, then I'll come back.
Can I ask, what did we decide last year as a council for those $5 fees? Was it, I think, if I remember correctly, we went ahead and went through the collection process for those $5, but I could be wrong.
I believe that we did, Councilor Brennan. There was some discussion among council last year on the $5 issue. But the reality is we pointed out, it is the same process that we have, and everyone is notified on multiple occasions that they have this due. And so they've had every opportunity to remit the $5. Again, regardless if it's $200 or $5, it's the same amount of staff work. And there's quite a bit of staff work that actually goes through this process.
Did you have a follow-up?
Well, Mayor, I agree with you that the $5 even kind of makes a flag. You know, is it a contested charge that the consumer might have with a late fee or whatever from Republic? How does it get to be a set flat amount? Valid point, I agree with you, but that contestation, if that's the case, shouldn't be happening here. It should be happening with Republic.
And if there are any issues, regardless, Mr. Burkett essentially is the city liaison for garbage matters, and all someone has to do is to ask, and we'll dig into what the issues are and do everything we can to resolve them.
Other questions of staff, Counselor?
Just to comment on that, you know, the taxpayers of the city are going to be paying that $5 to Republic. So we should be covering that cost with the fees that are part of it.
Other questions of staff? If not, this is a public hearing. Would any resident like to come forward and make comment on the delinquent garbage refuge bills? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Opportunity to take the trash out here. If you'd like to come forward and make comment on this?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Brennan. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Counselor Lehman?
Make a motion to adopt resolution R 219-109, certifying assessments for delinquent refuge bills. I'm going to add that if the staff could look into what the interest rate was at the last year, if it's consistent, to move forward, if it's less, to make that change.
Yeah, we can do that.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. No consideration for the flat fee of $5 at 8 residents at $40 total. Counselor Lehman?
I totally agree with you, but how do we do that equitably? You know, that's the challenge that I have, is you've got staff doing the same amount of legwork for the $5 as you do for the $300, and if it's the same amount of work for staff to put that together, how do you justify saying these don't pay, the taxpayers will cover it, these do pay? I think it comes down to an equity issue to me.
All right. Lack of consensus on that. There is a motion on the table and a second. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving ahead then to 7B, public hearing for assessment on delinquent city services. Counselor Lehman?
Motion to open public hearing?
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed? Public hearing is now open. Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a much smaller list. Again, this is for delinquent false alarms and mowing services. As you know, if a residential property does not have their lawn properly maintained, the city does come in and mow it for them. And also, when we have several false alarms, and I don't know what the number is, I believe it's 2 or more, but I can certainly check on that. But if we have multiple false alarms that we respond to, then that is also a charge. And this is the annual request, once again, for this to be attached to property taxes so we can have this money reimbursed to the city.
Questions of staff? I have just on this one that's a lion's share of the $300-some. Is that those are multiple charges on that?
It would be, yes, sir.
Okay, and then is that a problem address, or is there something going on that?
I haven't done the research on the specific parcel, sir. It's just, it is what is, the city has been required to come in and mow, and this is ultimately the cost for it.
Okay. Other questions of staff? If not, this is a public hearing. If any resident would like to come forward and make comment on the delinquent false alarms and mowing service bills, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome. Seeing none,
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Contreras to close the public hearing. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Councilor Contreras?
I'd like to make a motion to offer resolution number R-2019-110, certifying assessments for delinquent false alarms and mowing services.
Okay. I have a motion
Second with a
and a second for Councilor Lehman.
friendly amendment, that the 7.5% interest
Be checked.
either upheld or changed, It's consistent with the last item, the refuge delinquency.
Friendly amendment, oh, and if it was lower last year?
If it was 5% last year, that staff changed it to match, or if it wasn't, then they're all consistent.
Yes, sir.
Is that acceptable to the motion maker?
Yes.
And the second?
And Mayor, another follow-up, I'd like to point out that on both of the refuge delinquencies and these, they do have another month to pay without any interest up to November 15th, correct?
No, sir, if, it is as of tonight.
Yep.
Tonight.
We'll give them a few minutes.
Okay, this says specifically under number 4, the owner of any property so assessed may at any time prior to November 15th, 2019, pay the whole of the assessment without interest to the city finance department. It's in the resolution, bullet point number 4.
But I take it as number 4 as the fee plus $25, and you have up until the 15th not to be charged any interest.
The interest, but you'll still be paying the $25.
Right.
Yes.
What I'm saying is if they come in here before the 15th of November and pay, they're not going to be charged interest.
Right.
Oh,
Correct.
Charge the administrative fee.
But you're still going to pay the administrative fee.
Okay, clarification on that, along with the interest as a friendly amendment to make that match last year's. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8, recess for EDA. Would entertain a motion. Counselor Lehman?
Motion to recess for E EDA.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We will stand in recess for the EDA, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll call to order the October 15th, 2019 meeting of the Shakopee Economic Development Authority. Please make note of the roll. Next item is our approval of the agenda. Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, I'll offer the agenda as stated.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Brennan. Any discussion? Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have that approved. Next item is consent business, which includes the EDA minutes. Mr. Lehman?
Mr. President, I'll move the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second by Mars. Any discussion? Ms. Brennan?
I have a correction.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just noticed it. It's under 4A. It says that the agreement is for Moab, and I think we corrected it to be Mobob, M-O-B-O-B.
Yeah, it's stated down below, yeah.
Yep. And we did,
Very consistent typo.
All right, we make note of that correction, and we'll ask for that motion to be approved as amended. Everybody's on that? Okay, any other discussion on that? Discussion. We'll move the consent business. That includes the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is our item 4A, Second Amendment to Loan Agreement for Doggy Dues. Mr. Reynolds or Mr. Kursky?
This is Mr. Kursky, sir.
Mr. President and board members, this is the Second Amendment. This is the same agreement that the board passed in April. We're changing the date from December 31st till January 31st because of weather and other issues that they've encountered. They're still not been able to move into the new building. In fact, the owner and the building inspectors found out this week that the building's actually built too high and the parking lot's too low. So they have a little bit of work to do before the winter comes to regrade the front of the building and give them access, because I think stairs going into the building is probably not going to work very well for them. So it's been a struggle, but we're getting there.
All right, any questions of staff?
So this,
Ms. Brennan? I
oh,
think
I'm
that-
sorry.
Have they been in compliance with the agreement so far as jobs and wages and all the other components?
Mr. President, board members, that is, we haven't funded that loan yet. So the plan is when it is funded, they have to be in compliance with that. So that loan was originally set up to pay for their fixtures and equipment, so grooming tables, things like that. The building is not in a position right now where they could install or purchase those items. I'm expecting probably the end of the year, first part of next year, we'll actually execute that loan agreement, but it has not been executed or recorded yet. Or funded, for that matter.
Any other questions, Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, we've moved this date a couple times, I believe, Mr. Kursky, and I know their building is under construction up on the west end of the mall there. But we have a development that's ready to go down on the riverfront there. Is this going to be kind of a drop dead date then for movement?
Mr. President, board members, I mean, they would like to be in sooner. We actually have a meeting with their, our project coordinator and their contractor, architects and engineers, I believe, next week to try and get them to move along even quicker, because their busy season is the holidays and they would like to be out of our current building and into their new building. So they're paying on a note plus us rent right now. So you can imagine it's having some financial impact on them. So they would like to be in sooner than later. The development that you referred to will not begin construction probably until the spring. We have a meeting with them this week on their final design concepts and with engineering to work through some engineering issues, but they have submitted to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for the cleanup of the site. We are expecting that will be approved by November. So that is kind of the first step to get that project moving.
Any other questions? Mr. Lehman.
Mr. President, just so I'm clear on this, the only change in this is the date.
Mr. President, board member, that's correct. The agreement is identical to the one that was approved in April. We're changing the date to, I believe it says January 31st, and their move-out date is that date. I believe the original agreement said they had to be out by, the loan had to be closed by December 31st, which clearly is not going to happen.
What's the wishes of Mr. Lehman?
So now it's extended until January of 2020,
Yes, sir.
Another month.
a couple of months.
Yeah. What are the wishes? Go ahead,
I'd
Mr.
like
Contreras.
to approve resolution number E 2019-020, authorizing execution of the Second Amendment loan agreement with Doggy Doos and Spa and Retreat, Inc., and other documents and agreements to close the loan.
We have a motion on the floor, seconded by
Mr.
Mr.
President, I'll
Morris.
second that.
Any discussion? Discussion. You know, I think we are kind of at our end of our rope on this, and
As are they.
we got as are they. That's right. So we hope to move it along.
Right, and I think the end goal is to get, obviously, this business into a new building,
Right.
up on a new great site up there, and then having redevelopment on the current site, so it's certainly kind of bumped along here, but I think we're all excited, I think for all parties actually, to move ahead here, so just a couple months.
Mr. Lehman.
Mr. President, it's not end of the rope, it's end of the leash.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, let's. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The opposed, motion passes. Next item is 4B, sale of property MWF or its assigns. Mr. Kursky.
Mr. President, board members, so this actually, we don't typically do this during the EDA, but this is actually a state-required public hearing, so you'll have to ask for any public comment. It was advertised as such as required by state law by Kennedy and Graven, so anytime the EDA disposes of property, we have to advertise that we're disposing of property. So this is the actual contract to sell the property. You previously had approved basically a memorandum, a letter of intent that had the same conditions and price in it.
So do we need to open a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Who would like to make that offer?
I'll make that motion to open the
A
public.
motion by Brennan, seconded by Contreras to open a public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public hearing is now open. We may continue.
So this is so we've entered into a letter of understanding that they would purchase a property. This is actually the contract to move that forward.
Any
Same
questions?
terms, $500,000.
Mr. Mars?
Had a note on this. So the 500,000 is for 3.6 acres, I think, is that correct?
Mr. President, that's correct.
3.65.
6.5, yeah.
So this is the, excuse me, this is the parcel that's on Lincoln and Veerling that's kind of adjacent to where the old Kmart was. It's the last parcel we have.
Mr. Mars, do you have a
No,
continue?
I'm know where the location was,
Okay.
I've driven by it several times, I just was trying to do the cost per acre, but it seems to be a very good price for that, for another lot here for,
Any other questions of staff? How shall we proceed?
Public hearing.
A public hearing, yes.
Public hearing.
Ask anybody from the public would like to speak on this item. Please come up to the podium and state your name and welcome.
Thank you. I'm Matt Yetzer with MWF Properties. Yeah, we're proposing a development here, very similar to our Sarazen Flats development by the Target over there. We'll be using the same program, the tax credit funding, Section 42 tax credit funding program. We're excited about this location, especially with all the business development going around or going on in the area there. And and we think it's a great location. We're seeing a lot of demand at our Sarah's and Flats location, so we hopefully we'll be able to meet some of that with this future development here. So appreciate your guys' consideration.
I think you might want to sign in if you didn't already, and then we'll be good. Thank you for that. Mr. Mars?
I know in your last development here in town, we had you went for the tax credits, and it took a little while to build up those points. You also got some additional points for being close to a transit location, I believe, over by Target. This location doesn't have that component. Do you think, obviously you must think it's gonna score high enough? Are you gonna do anything different? What do you anticipate down the line?
No, yeah, it's a good question. We think with the employer growth in the area, and the fact that, just the demand we've seen at Sarah's, and we can use that as support as well, to show Minnesota Housing, who allocates these tax credits, that, the need is really there, and, that we think there's plenty of other attributes of this location that make it a competitive site and will be a competitive application.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the developer? Ms. Brennan?
How is your rental over at Sarah's and Flats? Are you renting, or are you?
Yeah, so the first phase is 100% occupied, and the second phase we're planning on opening in February. And we have a waiting list from the first phase that we plan on utilizing for that second phase, so.
Okay.
Well, that's great. Any other questions? Go ahead, Ms.
Oh, I
Brennan.
don't have a question.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number E 2019-019. What?
We have to close the public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm
Is there
sorry.
anybody else that would like to speak? This is a public hearing. All right, I think you can close the public hearing. Mr. Lehman can.
Motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Lehman, seconded by Mr. Mars to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, the public hearing is now closed. Ms. Brennan?
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number E 2019-019, authorizing the appropriate individuals to execute a purchase agreement with MWF Properties LLC for $500,000 for property identified as Veerling West in Taylor Street in Shakopee, Minnesota, with a parcel identification number of 274-730-030.
We have a motion on the floor and a seconded by Contreras. Any other discussion on this item? Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Well, passes 4-1. Layman and dissent. Item number 5, Mr. Layman.
Mr. President, there's not a spot for other business on this agenda, but I'd like to ask that we can notate on future agendas, public hearings.
That's a good idea. We'll make a note to staff on that. All right, item number 5, please. Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, I'll offer a motion to adjourn to Wednesday, November 6, 2019 at 7 p.m.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Contreras. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we stand adjourned.
We will reconvene the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for October 15, 2019. And we are just completed our EDA meeting and moving ahead to 10A1, Finance Director hire, Mr. Reynolds.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I've often said that there is no more important role in a city than a finance director, bar none. And as you know, we lost a very good finance director to one of our neighboring communities, and so we went in search of finding one ourselves. And we found one in a neighboring community. Mr. Reinhardt, Nathan Reinhardt, was the unanimous choice of the selection committee. He comes with great credentials and a great resume, and we fully expect him to fit in very nicely with this team. He has also worked with at least 2 members in the past of staff, including Mr. Lillyhog, who worked with him as well. So he is a known entity. We're delighted to have him aboard, and I would request that you approve his recommendation to be our next finance director.
Great. Questions of staff? Counselor Whiting?
Did you talk to him about the headlock scenario?
There's a reason the finance director is directly next to my office.
All right, good, that's good.
Adjoining rooms. I think they call it. Other questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
How many candidates did we interview?
We interviewed 5.
Good deep pool then?
Yep.
Yep.
What was the selection committee made up of?
The selection committee was myself, Mr. Lillyhog, Mr. Burkett, let's see, Melissa Schlingman from the finance office. We had Alyssa, HR manager. Mr. Kursky was also on the panel, and I believe that was it.
Did we have a council interview panel at all?
No, we did not.
Okay. Other questions of staff? And if we take action on this, positive action on this, would we meet him at our next meeting?
We can certainly have him here. Or we can request that he come here.
Counselor Whiting?
The motion to approve the hire of Nathan Reinhardt as finance director at step 6, grade 230 of the city's 2019 non-union pay plan and terms in accordance with the attached signed offer letter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Brennan. I guess I asked if we can meet him at, when's his start date? Did I miss that?
Start date is... I don't believe I have that information.
Is it the offer letter?
It's not on the offer letter. So I do not know what a start date is, but I can get that for you tomorrow.
Should have a, okay. All right. Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations to Nathan Reinhardt, and I hope you start soon. All right, let's move on. 10B1, or 10A2, excuse me, was added to consent, our financial review for September. 10B1, rezoning of West Shakopee Gateway. And Michael, welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a rezoning of 3.66 acres from B1 Highway Business to R4 High Density Residential. This is the subject property, which the EDA just had a contract to MWF Properties. Doggy Doos, which you talked about earlier, is here up in the front. North Star Treatments Facility is right here. This is the subject property. And across the street is the property that's under contract to Opus for a business park development. You can see the adjoining properties back here. The townhomes are R3 and Arlington Ridge is R3. And then you have Town Square Mall. This is the old Kmart. So it's currently guided mixed-use center in the 2040 comp plan. It's currently vacant. 2 buildings totaling 102 units, 60 and 42 units are proposed by MWF Properties. Proposed density meets the guiding and the comprehensive plan. Considerations are, nobody really wanted this site as for a B1 use. Residential uses typically generate fewer trips. There's adequate transportation and utilities in place. Proposed use meets guiding and the comprehensive plan, and the proposal meets the goal of providing housing that is affordable in Shakopee. This is just the concept plan. This has not been submitted officially to staff, so there's been not a traffic impact analysis done or utilities, but this is similar to the plan that they have at Saracen Flats, underground parking with parking in the front. We have noticed that this is over-parked and under landscaped per the new code that council adopts, so they'll have to make changes in this and also work with engineering. on whether this is the right point for access and what their trip generation will be, and whether this infiltration basin over here, for instance, is large enough to get to our ponds. But it's just a concept plan to show you kind of how the buildings would sit on the site. Planning Commission recommended City Council approval by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, questions of staff? Questions of staff? Michael, thank you. Counselors? We just had an agreement to sell this property, and here we are to rezone it directly in line with our comp plan. Counselor Whiting?
You know, I think this site is the best spot for this type of building. I mean, it flows nicely, good flow with the other housing in the area. It's a good spot, so I would move to adopt ordinance number 02019-013, an ordinance rezoning Lot 1, Block 2, West Shakopee Gateway, First Edition, from Highway Business B1 to R4 High Density Residential.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Brennan. Further discussion? It's exciting to see these, what I call the four parcels, really come together in the last couple of years here now. Two businesses already, one up and running, one gonna be soon, with a housing component. And then if we can get the Opus to land a office business research, some higher end thing, I think ease of access to 69, all those things. And of course, we put some money into that road to extend it. So I think all these pieces are coming together, and it's actually that whole parcel sat vacant for how long? So, and I think another housing component up there would be good. Councilor Brennan?
I feel that with the speed of the occupancy over at Sarah's and Flats, that affordable housing is really a need in our community. So I am looking forward to having more of that available for people to come into Shakopee.
Other comments? We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Did you have a comment on that? Thank you very much. Moving ahead to 10B2, presentation by Excel Energy. Michael.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Xcel, as some of you know, is one of the largest energy providers in Minnesota, but they also serve our community. You'll see in a map tonight that a large portion of the business park and some of our large employers actually are served by Xcel. So they come tonight to talk about some of their programs that they're running and some of the services they provide. They provide power, for instance, to RAR, Valley Fair, Anchor Glass. Anchor Glass is one of the largest electrical users in our community and probably in their territory. So without further ado, I'll let the representatives introduce themselves, and they have a short presentation for you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Representatives of Excel Energy, welcome.
Sounds good. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for affording us a little bit of time on your agenda this evening. My name is John Marshall. I'm the Director of Community and Government Relations for Excel Energy in Minnesota, North and South Dakota. We have been reaching out to the various communities that we've served for quite some time now. I was in Red Wing this morning and was in Fargo last week, Monticello a couple weeks ago. There's a lot going on in our industry, a lot going on with our company, so we really do, again, appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of these updates with you. As Mr. Kursky mentioned, we do serve some customers down here in Shakopee. We do have some critical assets as well with respect to substations, and we do have a large generating facility here in our Blue Lake generating station. So If I could walk through a little bit of background of the company, Xcel Energy, as you may know, serves 8 states. We are headquartered here in Minnesota. Our headquarters campus is in Minneapolis. We do serve a chunk of western Wisconsin up into the Michigan Peninsula. We are the largest utility in the state of Minnesota, largest utility in the Dakotas. We also are the largest utility in the state of Colorado. We serve a portion of New Mexico in the Roswell area, as well as some of the upper Panhandle in Texas, out of the Amarillo area. We're really proud of a number of items. We really tout our wind leadership in the nation. Since 2005, we've been the #1 wind energy provider in the country, and as well as offering a very robust portfolio of energy efficiency products and rebates for our customers. More and more our customers are reaching out to us looking for new products, new services, ways that they can help monitor and control their energy consumption and their energy costs. And each day we're coming out with new products and trying to respond to those requests. We're really proud of our reductions in carbon emission, and I'll talk about that momentarily, and then as well as additional innovative technologies, including first in the nation from the FAA for the use of drones to monitor and explore the safety and reliability of our transmission system. There are 3 priorities that our company looks at everything with. They've remained consistent for some time, and they stay very relevant today. The first is our continuing to lead the clean energy transition. I mentioned again, since 2005, we've been the leading wind energy provider. We made some fairly bold announcements that I'll speak to momentarily. I mentioned also our customer experience. Gone are the days where the utility is looked at where you simply flip a switch and count on reliability and hope for low bills. Our customers are reaching out more and more day to day, asking for, again, energy efficiency products and really taking an interest in the energy, where does it come from, and the generation mix. While we do both of those items, our #1 priority outside of safety would be to keep our bills low. We need to remain competitive and have a competitive environment. We're proud to tout that our bills currently are 19% below the national average in Minnesota, and that remains a priority for us, not only for customer retention, but as we deploy some growth tactics that I will also talk about momentarily. Again, these 3 priorities, as we dig into them, leading the clean energy transition, a little over a year ago, our CEO made a very bold announcement, and it was actually the first in the nation. We announced that we would be striving to achieve 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. At the time, it was the very first announcement like that from any utility in the nation. Since then, a number of utilities, including Duke, the largest utility in the nation just a month ago, came out with identical goals. And so we're really proud to be leading that effort and driving a very significant change in the industry. In the immediate, we do have a goal and a very specific plan to achieve 80% carbon-free electricity by 2030. And that's fairly interesting if you take into context, say, the Paris Climate Accord from a few years ago. That was calling for 26 to 28% reductions in carbon emissions by 2025. And here we sit today at already 38% reduction. So we're very proud of that. And again, I mentioned our customer experience. We do have a pretty exciting mobile app that our customers are really enjoying. It gives them a direct line of sight in real time for their billing capabilities, an outage map in real time. And we've heard a lot of positive feedback from our customers on those applications. And we foresee a lot more technology rolling out in our distribution system in the coming years. Again, we're really proud to serve Minnesota. We're in over 740 communities across the state. We have a number of gas and electric customers, and we're really proud of our reliability, touting a 99.9% reliability rate. We've made a lot of changes with respect to our reliability, including advanced staging when storms are coming, working with partner utilities on mutual aid. I'll never forget the 2013 kind of dual storms with a lot of moisture that knocked out, or rather impacted, about 600,000 customers across the state of Minnesota, and that was pretty incredible. We had 98% restoration within 2 days, and that was pretty staggering considering other climate conditions that utilities are seeing around the nation. Going back to our leadership on clean energy, as we stand today in 2018, we're at 38% reduction of carbon emissions, and this is based on our 2005 levels. That's pretty significant across the nation, certainly when you compare to other utilities. Again, our 2030 goal is to have 80% carbon-free electricity by 2030, and our stretch goal is 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. We have a clear path into 2030 that I'll get into here in just a minute. But you can see here, going back to 2005 rather, just a steady decline in our carbon emissions, looking forward all the way out to 2030. And again, our hope and our goal is to get to that 80% reduction in carbon. Now, why do I say all of this? This matters at a very national stage. Xcel Energy is very much ramping up their visibility as a utility leader across the nation. Even though we're in even though we're in 8 states, there's a significant amount of visibility for Xcel Energy across the country as a leader on many fronts. So how do we get to 2030 and 80% carbon-free electricity? It really comes down to 4 specific parts. We made announcements in July 1st when we filed our integrated resource plan with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission that we intend to close our remaining coal fleet in Minnesota a decade ahead of time. And that includes our Sherco Unit 3 up in Becker, Minnesota, as well as our King plant in Oak Park Heights. We're actively working with both of those communities in the process of those transitions, and certainly as those dates come closer, we'll continue to work with them on future plans for those sites. We do have significant renewable investments planned, already leading with renewables. We're going to be doubling down on that and propose a significant amount of renewable investment into the 2020s here with more wind and more solar. We are really fortunate to have 2 stellar nuclear plants in the state of Minnesota. They're well-run with tremendously dedicated employees, and they've been setting records for the amount of days run without having to do a refueling outage. In Red Wing this morning, we did the Prairie Island update to the Goodhue and Red Wing County communities. I want to say we set the record by having one of those units run nonstop for 682 days. And I believe the world record is 692 days. So my friends in the nuclear industry were very excited about that. Finally, the piece for our plan to get to 2030 is to rely on natural gas. It is a bridge fuel. We do need spinning reserve for our generation to make sure that reliability is paramount. We can't sacrifice cost. We can't sacrifice reliability as we strive to achieve this clean energy transition. This is just a quick summary showing the mix of fuel that we're proposing from where we sit today in 2018 and the plan we filed with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. As you can see, coal disappears and you see significant increases in renewable energy. And again, the nuclear fleet stays steady with natural gas as an intermittent source for reliability. We're proud of the impact we have on Minnesota's economy as a state overall. We remain the largest property taxpayer, paying $220 million to the state. We're constantly working with our local communities and the Department of Revenue to work on mitigating that. But we do provide significant amount of economic impact with the dollars that we spend annually on suppliers and certainly the jobs that we provide across the state, both full-time FTEs and our contract employees. It would be remiss if I didn't note specifically some of our unique hiring practices. Everybody is welcome at the Xcel Energy company, and with respect to veteran hiring in particular, a number of years back, our CEO set the target that 10% of all of our new hires would be veterans, and we've exceeded that every year. We're very proud of that. I must say that hiring military is fantastic. They work hard, they know chain of command, and they align very well with the values that Xcel Energy has about reliability and 24-hour operations. I mentioned energy efficiency. The products and services that we have for our customers, residential, commercial, industrial, they're always looking for evolving energy efficiency options. And that incentive-based mechanism of energy efficiency really has proved out in some dividends. Since our energy efficiency programs really began to kick off in 1992, we've avoided enough energy to avoid building 13 mid-sized power plants. And that's good for everybody. It's good for our customers. It's good for our company. I think it's good for the state of Minnesota to not have that overbuilt infrastructure. Corporate economic development is a division that we just started about 6 years ago. This is a targeted effort to talk about Xcel Energy, not state by state, but rather represent us as an 8-state company leading the industry in many fronts. We have an incredible brand to talk about across the state, and we are leveraging that every day to grow economic development in our communities as well as across the states that we serve. Local economic development, for instance, a lot of our cities are looking for assistance with mixed-use development, build-outs of corners, turning over some brownfields. We have a lot of tools and assets that we bring to bear to help with that. Energy design assistance, a number of our energy efficiency programs, as well as just facilitating permitting and assistance with each local government or the developers in working with our internal processes to get power to those sites. Of course, a lot of this is focused on retaining our existing customers and answering the requests that they have for information about energy and the desire for a cleaner, more affordable energy future. But probably most importantly, this has put us on a national stage to talk about everything that we're doing at Xcel, how we're managing costs, how we're leading that clean energy transition, and it's resonating in a significant way. We launched a program called Certified Sites, where we did an inventory of lands that we own or have options and control under, run them through a rigorous process so that we can actually have speed to market on sites that are ready when we have site selectors coming. We worked in partnership with the former president of the National Site Selectors Guild, who guided us in the creation of the Certified Site Initiative, which is fairly unique in the US. The time to respond to requests for inquiry from large energy users and large customers has shrunk into just a few days. And unless you have lands that are ready and certified sites able to turn to begin the discussion, and a team, frankly, like Xcel has through our corporate economic development, you lose those opportunities. We're very hungry to grow, and we're certainly hungry to retain our customers, keep them happy, but we're growing and we're really excited about the opportunities before us. I think some folks may have heard recently up in Becker, Minnesota, where we're going to see some transition from those power plants. We've been making targeted efforts up there, working with the city, the county, a number of stakeholders. We have so far successfully landed Google, and they have announced very large plans for a massive data center. That's very exciting. I think if you talk to data center industry folks, they would say, boy, when you bring one, the rest are piggybacking on the due diligence done by one. So I think Google's just the start of it for our territories. In fact, I'm highly confident of that. Some other industries that we're focusing on, you could see here the list. I won't read them all: aviation and aerospace. More recently, I mentioned drone technology as an application we use as a company. The drone technology is huge, especially up in our North Dakota territory with the education footprint up there. So we're really getting into the drone technology as a potential growth opportunity for manufacturing those products. And again, indoor agriculture, which is extremely popular for unique reasons in Colorado, is growing, and it's certainly an application that can be put towards indoor agriculture for organic greens and food and tomatoes, et cetera. So that's a significant growth opportunity for the utility, provides a lot of good jobs as well. Of course, we have manufacturing. Subordinate, or I should say secondary areas of focus, again, cryptocurrency and some other technologies tied to AR are also things that we look at. None of this is defined by borders for us in terms of opportunities. If a community is interested in a specific subject matter, we work with them and really tell our story, look to certify sites, and really attack that market, tell the Xcel Energy story, the energy story, the cost effectiveness story, and we have a good story to tell in partnership with the communities that we serve. Our proposition really, as I just mentioned, is our energy efficiency and our suite of products and this really robust portfolio to demonstrate how to plan properly, design properly for energy, and then identify rebates down the road. We have competitively priced energy that we're very proud of that, again, remains a strategic priority for the company in everything that we do. We have a lot of renewable energy options, not just through the portfolio that we have, but we have additional products and services that you can buy onto Renewable Connect, for instance, to have 100% renewable tomorrow if that meets your specific customer or company goals. Again, the certified sites that we have to expedite speed to market on properties, and then these customized energy solutions to work specifically with customers on their very specific needs. Again, Minnesota, been here 110 years. Xcel Energy's roots really stem back to the Northern States Power Days, NSP. I think we all remember Ready Kilowatt. But we have an incredible employee base that is very dedicated. They live and work in the communities that we serve. An incredible amount of hours of volunteer service. Just back in September, we had our 8th annual Day of Service, where we had almost 2,000 employees at 63 sites on a beautiful Saturday, giving of all their time and bringing their kids out. And it's just it's a really good culture at Xcel. It's fully vested and committed to the communities we serve. With that, I would like to introduce my colleague, Michelle Swanson. Michelle is our Community and Government Relations Manager for the Southwest Metro area. And when we do have some customer issues in Shakopee or involvement with our power plant down here, Michelle is our point of contact. I'll turn it over to her to provide some information on our service territory down here.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time, Mayor, council members.
Welcome.
Welcome. Oh, thank you. It's good to be here. Let me just get situated here a little bit. I just clicked this to advance the slide. that? Oh, just hit that one. Okay. Okay. Well, good evening. As John mentioned, I'm the Community Relations Manager for the Southwest Metro area, including Shakopee. My role is to work with local governments and community leaders. And my goal is to create positive outcomes between Excel Energy and the communities that we serve. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I interface with about 35 cities. And a little background on me now. I've worked for Excel Energy / NSP for about 33 years. The last 10 years being in the position I am in now, which is community relations. And I'm really proud to work for a company that's been so progressive on so many different fronts, and John just kind of outlined what those fronts are. But working at a place for 33 years, I've seen a lot of change in culture, a lot of change in how we view the world, et cetera. So it's been a great place for me to work at. Now on to maybe some basic facts and figures. So I've just got this kind of general service territory map up here for electric. We serve about 160 electric customers in Shakopee. Most of them are located along Highway 101, and most of those customers are commercial and industrial. We also have gas in Shakopee. We have about 80 gas customers in Shakopee. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but we're actually growing in this area. And the area that we're growing in Shakopee is the southwest corner of Highway 169 and Marystown Road. So keep the development going. We love the business. So we're pretty excited about that. So we have substantial facilities in Shakopee, 5 substations, obviously a lot of transmission and distribution facilities. And also, you know, people may not realize, but we have a major generating facility here. The Blue Lake Power Plant is located along County Road 101 and 70th Street. It sits on a parcel of about 127 acres of company-owned land. The Blue Lake Power Plant has 6 peaking units totaling about 510 megawatts. In the upper Midwest, Excel Energy has generating capacity between 13 and 14,000 megawatts, just to kind of give you a scale of what our generating capacity is in the upper Midwest. And for your reference, 1 megawatt powers about 1,100 homes. So when you look at the Blue Lake Power Plant, we have 4 oil-fired combustion turbines at that facility. They're older. They're going to be retired in 2023. Then we also have 2 natural gas-fired combustion turbines. They're newer, no retirement date in the future. The site has 5 permanent staff, but at any given time, depending on what's going on at the plant, there may be additional folks at the plant. So while we may not serve a lot of customers in Shakopee, we do have a pretty significant economic impact. We'll be paying about $162,000 in property taxes in 2019 to the city this year. We collect 3% of gross revenues for our electric and gas customers. In Shakopee, remit those fees to the city. And that was a total of about $333,000 in 2018. And all but less than 1,000 of that is from our electric customers. Gas is still pretty small in terms of what we're collecting for franchise fees from them. And we also do a lot of business with businesses in Shakopee. In 2018, we spent about $2.4 million with a variety of businesses in Shakopee. And to give you an example, from small to large, large to small, Ditch Witch, Titan Machinery, Manufacturing, the Hampton Inn, Mr. Pig Stuff, I think it's called. So you can think it's a wide variety of businesses that we do business with. And in 2018, we did business with about 70 different businesses. I'll note too that $2.4 million spend in Shakopee, 300,000 of that is for women and minority-owned businesses. As John mentioned earlier, or I hope he mentioned earlier, diversity is very important to our company, and we work in diversity in every aspect of our company that we can, including using diverse supply chain. So building our communities is pretty vital to our future. So we like to invest in the community. We've been members of Shakopee Chamber for about 21 years. We do a lot of sponsorships through that organization. It's a very well-run organization. And I have a budget. Every community relations manager has a budget in which we kind of get to choose what we want to invest in. It's important for Xcel Energy to invest in things that are important to the community. So we're always looking for ideas in terms of, is it a parade? Is it a festival? Is it a veterans memorial and you're buying a paver brick for it, et cetera? So I've worked with the city and told the city in the past that we're always interested in hearing from them in terms of what things are important to them. We review them, and then we might be able to fund those things. But again, it's important for us to invest in things that are important to you.
Have you ever heard of Reverend Pond?
No. No, but maybe I will, right?
I think you will.
Okay, all right, thank you. We've also had a number of partnerships with the city, and we're looking to partner with the city on a few things coming up. In 2017, we signed a lease or a license agreement that would allow for walking trails on our property right next to the Blue Lake Power Plant. And we now have heard from the city that they're very interested in maybe instead of the walking trails there, that would become a mountain bike trail, but it would be extended further across our property, which isn't shown on this map. And so we actually have a meeting set up in early November with the city to discuss to explore the possibilities of if this mountain bike trail, where it could possibly be located. At the same time, we started talking to the city about helping us with an access issue at the Blue Lake Power Plant. The railroad going across the tracks, sometimes that can delay access to our employees for an hour and a half, waiting for the train to pass and get in there. So working with Michael, we're going to be talking about, are there other opportunities to create a more permanent access for it so we don't have that issue? So my part of the presentation was short, it was very localized. We have a good relationship with the city. We certainly intend to keep that up. If there are any questions that you have for John or I, we're here to respond. So thank you for your time and attention tonight.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Maybe we will have some questions. What is your base load for your CI here in Shakopee on an annual basis?
Commercial and
Okay, sorry. I don't have that off the top of my head. I can go back and get that to you, assuming we can provide that information, that there's not some data confidentiality with that. But quite frankly, actually now when I think about it, you know, I already told you that out of the 160 customers, the bulk of them are commercial and industrial, but I can't tell you what they add up to in terms of capacity.
Just trying to, I was going to ask your base load and then your peak load for those 150 CIs customers that you have here.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, but I'll go back and see if I can supply that for you.
Other questions, Counselor?
I just wanted to make a comment that appreciate your time and the presentation you gave us. I was impressed with the economic development site ready certification process, and that makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure your business customers appreciate that too. I want to thank you for your work with many of the different communities. The Rhythm on the Rails, that was sponsored by you folks, and many people appreciate that. And you work with Shakopee Heritage Society, and maybe we can talk about Reverend Pond later too. But the city appreciates all that. And I'm looking forward to the discussions on Quarry Lake Park too. I think that's going to be key, how we can work together on something like that. So.
I do have to respond to that. I did attend one of the Rhythm on the Rails. It was the anarchist band, or do you know what I'm talking about, Michael? Arch Enemy, sorry, not an anarchist, good grief, that was a big blooper. It was awesome. It was all the music I remember. So it was a really great experience. The first time I've been to that event, really well run. I think, Angie, and if the city's involved in that, do a great job with that.
Thanks for your participation.
Councilor Lehman?
Mr. Mayor, we all remember last year's 50 below deep freeze and the news articles of housing areas shut down for lack of capacity, basically froze up. How do you go about picking which areas you're gonna shut down for lack of capacity when situations like that arise? And then the second part of that question that you didn't hit on in your presentation is your capital outlay for the future to build in that capacity so that kind of issues don't happen in the future.
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lehman, appreciate that. I think we all remember the polar vortex. It was quite a significant event. I remember, and we'll never forget, driving out to Princeton, Minnesota, where we did lose a little over, I think it was 162 customers at 4 a.m. with my dash saying -40, while the Rascals' "It's a Beautiful Morning" played on the radio, ironically. It was a terrible situation. It was really a high risk, and we're really fortunate to have partnered with tremendous emergency response personnel up there. We had plenty of gas in the system. It was a pressure issue up there based on how that specific neighborhood was designed. And I think in the middle of the incident, our gas operations engineers made the call to crimp off that area that was a radial, sacrificed 162 customers in order to keep the balance for the rest of the system. We did engage with all of those homeowners, again, working with the local emergency personnel, went door to door, had heaters, set up hotels for them all. They were extremely patient throughout that whole process. We also did have some risky areas in Hugo that ultimately held and were fine. Since then, there's been quite a bit of follow-up with us and as well as the other utilities across Minnesota from the vortex. Met with the Public Utilities Commission. We've made investments in all of those areas and have now changed our engineering protocols and are doing an audit of any additional systems that might be at risk. I did speak with our Senior Vice President of Gas Operations not too long ago. We have extremely high confidence heading into this winter. That was quite the epic adventure for all of us, and one that I think we'll remember, and really glad that nobody was hurt, frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Follow-up?
Just a couple other questions. A percentage of customers, what percentage of your power is from renewables today?
That is a great question. I can speak to, I think by 2022, we will have over 60% of our generation from renewable energy in Minnesota. And we do intend to make additional investments into that renewable energy of wind and solar. Again, those are intermittent sources that deliver energy based on when Mother Nature says.
Right.
Hence our consistent and dedicated baseload offering of our nuclear fleet, which is steady and ready and running 24/7. And then that intermittent gas. That is really, truly our playbook for the future to achieve those carbon reduction goals, to retain solid reliability and cost effectiveness.
And then the last two questions are about the same, but what percentage of the customer participation in renewable options that you offer, if you offer them, and then you have the percentage of customers enrolled in your conservation program, which would be like the changing over of Energy Star appliances and these types of things.
Yeah. I don't have specifics in my head. I'd be happy to provide those and respond to Mr. Mayor and the council members here with those details. I could speak to energy efficiency being wildly successful for decades. And again, we've been leading on that for many, many, many years in the nation. With respect to customers that are stepping into the voluntary, we have a product that I'll reference called Renewable Connect. And this is a blended wind solar product that we developed with low-cost wind and a little bit less low-cost solar, we'll put it. And that's an offering that's roughly around our retail rate with a small premium that allows customers, residential, commercial, and otherwise, to step in and lock up rates at tranches, or I'm sorry, at commitments of 5 to 10 years, or even I think as low as 1 year. That went through its first tranche and sold out. We added a second tranche and that sold out, and we're right now in the process of developing resources to fulfill a third tranche and have that out there. I will say it is pretty incredible to see the demand growing day to day from residential, commercial, industrial customers, multinational firms, international firms that have very aggressive environmental goals. So we certainly feel confident that we're responding to the wishes of our customers and are definitely seeing growing trends from our commercial customers in that regard.
So can we get a percentage?
Sure. Yes, sir.
More questions? My question is, in the regulated industry that you are, but your board of directors sets a fee and then passes that on to the consumer. I think in Excel's case, they have to go and make application to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, which reviews those rates?
That is correct, sir. We're regulated on many, many different levels. I would argue we're the most regulated company in the state of Minnesota. Every year, and frankly, every day, we're filing something with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. They control and manage and audit our rates, our rate of return, our return on equity, costs, programs, everything. There's a 5-member gubernatorial-appointed board of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, and they're our regulatory governing body for the state of Minnesota. Each state has their own utilities commissions that govern independently, and then also through our nuclear facilities, we have some federal governance, of course, as well.
Mr. Reynolds?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate it. There are a couple things that I noted: 150 energy efficiency programs and your work with local governments to support economic development, both which are impressive. But what I really appreciate, frankly, is the work that you do on the local level. You know, corporate citizenship is extremely important, and you guys clearly do a great job in that regards. You know, everything from the Shakopee Heritage Society, Red, White, and Brews with the Chamber, Rhythm on the Rails. That's really impressive, and I thank you and appreciate that.
Appreciate that very much, Mr. Mayor, council members. I've been with Excel 12 years, and a little background on myself. I worked for the city council in St. Paul for about 9 years prior to that, which I must say I loved their city hall, but this is gorgeous. Well done. I have a real personal appeal for local government as well as constituent service and policy work at the local level. It means a lot to me, and I have just enjoyed every day of the last 12 years working for Excel Energy. It really is a tremendous organization that truly values the communities we serve. It's never lost on us that we've been in Minnesota serving these communities for 110 years and look forward to serving them for another 110.
And I also look forward to our continuing discussions with the possibility of the mountain bike path, which will allow us to activate a space that has been a dead weight around, well, at least the staff's neck, if not the council's neck, for some time now, where we can, as opposed to spending $2.5 million for a wedding chapel or whatever out there, we can actually look at spending something as little as less as $40,000 a mile for a state-of-the-art mountain bike track that will be home for the Shakopee mountain bike team, as well as a regional park for the whole area where we can host mountain bike activities and people can come and mountain bike, and we'll also have a place to learn mountain bike maneuvers. All of that is critical. I really look forward to those continuing discussions. Again, thank you so much for your willingness to sit down with us and even broach that subject. You've been tremendous to work with, and I can't thank you enough.
Hats off to my colleague Michelle, absolutely.
Very good collaborative partnership and your involvement here in those, in the organizations. I know Michelle and you met at the Innovative Center, the Shakopee University conversation a month ago, so that's great. And Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, I just wanted to point out that I did hear your concerns about access. That area has been access ridden for a while, so, and you're right, the train track does place a burden on a lot of access points when the trains are busy, which is good and bad. But so I didn't lose sight of that. I did hear that comment.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right. Moving ahead then, 11A, our city bill list is in front of us for our review. 11B, liaison administration report. Councilor Brennan.
I went to the Scale Executive Committee in regular meeting, and there was a presentation by the First Stop Shop on economic development in Scott County. And we went through an exercise of a business that's coming in and where they would want to have their business. And I think the key component or the key takeaway from that was that we have to be ready for these businesses, that they need us to be ready, and Scott County is kind of falling behind on that readiness. Went to the police swearing in of Officer Yankee, And it was very good and very good. Went to Live, Learn, and Earn meeting on housing, and we took a look at the Maxfield report. And one of the things, and I mentioned it earlier, is that affordable housing is really needed in the area and in Scott County. And I asked Mr. Reynolds if he could forward that to you, and I think he did. We also went to the welcoming the Minnesota House of Representatives to Shakopee, and Angelica and I presented were part of the group that presented two of the bonding requests that we have. One was for the Riverfront Stabilization Project, and the other was for the 169 pedestrian and biking bridge. And both of those are very needed in our community. Also went to the fire department open house, and took a look at the boat and talked to them about the boat that they have. Also attended the 50th anniversary of the Scott County Library open house, and it was interesting to see the development of the library in Shakopee from pictures of the old original library until now. Went to and volunteered at the Pumpkins in the Park. I really want to thank the Shakopee Chamber and Visitor Bureau for putting on Pumpkins in the Park. It's great to watch all the kids coming through the line and getting their candy and participating, and I'm glad that their Shakopee Chamber and Visitor Bureau is doing that for our community. Oh, and I also toured the Blue Lake water treatment facility, and wow, that's very interesting, very interesting to do. Learned a lot, something that I never thought I would be doing. So that was good.
Thank you. Counselor Lehman.
I attended the SPUC utility meeting last Monday. It was off Wampus from the city. It's usually the same week. I don't know what happened there, but the Windermere Booster Station was operational October 1st. A couple of power outages. Two of them were contractor dig-ins. I'm not sure if Go For One or whoever marked it properly and they didn't follow it, or maybe they didn't call for them before they dig. I don't know. They did have the nitrates report out, so I've got a copy of that to share. If I recall, I think the area of highest nitrates was the downtown area, and it has something to do with the water runoff can go, because the rock is so high that the water can run down to the water table pretty easy without getting filtered by any ground. Some areas are actually going down in nitrates, so that was good. They've got all their wells in here. I'll actually give this to staff and they can share it with everybody else. And then I took the liberty to ask about the manganese, and I'm pronouncing it right, in the water, and we actually have none that are, there's two guidelines. There is no formal regulated amount, but there's guidelines out there, a state and a federal guideline, 100 parts per billion and 300 parts per billion. Ours are, let's see here, our highest one is well 15, and that is with 15, 16, and 17. All three of them go to one header, and they're mixed, and then it leaves there in one pipe. So
Blended.
correct.
Yep.
Before it leaves through one, and there's actually a picture of that. And then blended, it is, it's 0.41, so it's well below the 100 parts per billion. So it's actually baby safe, but then they add a 10% cushion, so they raise the number by 10% as just a cushion. So that would put it at 0.45 with the 10%. Which is, and what I found really strange is, like, one well is non-detectable, and these wells are pretty much in a row. where the next can have, you know, a higher amount. So I looked into why is that. And manganese is, it's a mineral. It comes right out of rock. So it's not something, I mean, our bodies actually, it's actually good for our bodies to a certain extent, but too much of it is not good. But we don't have the too much issue at all. We're actually well below in all fields, so it actually is baby safe. They say 100 parts per billion is where you have to start worrying. And then I didn't realize, but water softeners actually do remove some manganese, which is good, I guess, if you had a problem, but that we don't. So I learned all about water quality, and I have to say we actually have some pretty decent water quality in Shakopee, knock on wood. All the water studies show that as we move to the west, that the aquifers are less producing and in capacity and possibly quality. Hopefully these studies are wrong, but we'll see. They're doing some test wells on the Windermere site. That's where the tank is, storage tank is gonna be. That's happening this month, so I would suspect by the end of the month, maybe early next month, we'll have some idea of what kind of quantity and quality them wells might be. They've got some options of moving a little bit, going deeper if necessary. So there are some options out there. But I think they're gearing up for, even if the wells aren't as productive as they like, that they're building that storage facility large enough to be able to supply capacity to that area. So I think from a development standpoint, we should be in pretty good shape water-wise out in that area. And then they've also got built in any kind of treatment above and beyond anything that mixing or whatever that they might need based on them wells. So even if the wells are higher in some of the minerals and stuff, then a determination will be made to either go deeper, site different locations, or treatment. Okay? So I do have a couple copies of these. I thought I'd give them to our staff. I want to keep one for myself. Maybe they can print this stuff out. It's got some of the Minnesota and the federal health guidelines and our recommendations. And this here's got some of my notes on there, if staff doesn't mind. My personal notes, that's okay. It's nothing earth-shattering. Kind of locations, like these wells are located by the soccer, these wells are located by here, and so on and so forth. So if any council
Scan
members
that,
would like a
General?
copy of that, it's pretty good water quality information. And that's all I have, sir.
Counselor Lehman, thank you very much. On my docket in the last couple of weeks, I've met with city staff. I also toured the Blue Lake Treatment Facility. I brought in some samples tonight, and I hope everybody enjoyed them. I too have some packets for the counselors that did not get them, and we have one for staff. That's an interesting facility. Some stuff we take for granted. Pretty high tech. There's 7 or 8 of those around the metro area. Shakopee and Chaska, but a lot of the volume from that facility actually comes from the north side of the river. And I just found it fascinating how in a day that they can take their product that's coming in and clean that up, and then in a day, and they can clean that up to the high enough standards to discharge into the Minnesota River, and been told that the water that goes into the Minnesota River from that facility is cleaner than the water that's in the river. So I guess after looking at going on that tour, I missed the one in the last couple of years, but I'm glad that facility's in Shakopee, and it's pretty cool. I also attended the Shakopee Fire Department open house. Those are great events for the kids, the residents, to come and meet our staff, tour our, look and drive the trucks. I mean, to get in the trucks. I always try to drive the trucks. They had the keys locked up, but I just think that's great. Hopefully in the spring, we can do a Public Works open house again. I also attended Pumpkins in the Park. I think even with the weather, they had a good turnout. Nothing better than seeing some kids that are all excited and dressed up and get some candy, so great event. Of course, coming up Saturday, this Saturday, the 19th, our fall cleanup day, first ever, 7:30 to 11:30, great opportunity. Of course, you can always drop off your free yard waste at the ORF facility every Sunday through the month of October. And I just want to remind our community to be safe on Halloween. That is my report. Counselor Lehman.
I have a question on the treatment facility. Last time I was out there was before the new stack was built, that it's higher than average and had to get approvals and
Approval,
stuff.
yes.
What does that, how does?
So they take the residual end product and heat it up and dry it, and make it into pellets, and that company, that turns into fertilizer. So there's methane gas that gets, sometimes it gets flared off, the excess that they're not using. They use the excess, they use the methane gas that comes off the product to help dry the process. So it's all integrated. It's very, actually very efficient from an energy standpoint. But that side project for the end use product that the Met Council entered into has done very, very well, and they're looking at maybe renewing that down the line. The other treatment facilities around the metro area kind of do the same thing, but they don't have the company end use that we have, and that product goes out to Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa for farm fields. So it is a complete, they say that very little actually goes to waste, as you can imagine, but very efficient, very effective. I thought it was pretty cool. But that's my report. Counselor Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had no liaison reports, but I did want to comment on the housing data that I got from Councilor Brennan. Appreciate that. And the affordable housing in Scott County, it looked like Shakopee was at least leading the charge on that. So
Definitely.
as a countywide, I think we have some issues, but Shakopee's doing pretty good. Tomorrow night is the interview committee. We're trying to get one more person on one of our boards, so we'll be here tomorrow. And I'll be out at cleanup day on Saturdays, so say hi if you see me.
Thank you very much. Counselor Contreras.
I think yourself and Councilman Brennan have pretty much spoke about them, but I think I'll just quickly, where I've been. I too attended the Blue Lake treatment plant tour, attended the fire station open house, and what got me there was the training that they have, where our firefighters train. They seem to be very, you would say like a playground and stuff, but with the places they go in through, like caught my attention, like how they practice and all that stuff. I think that was amazing. That's a great training area that they have. I also attended the police swear-in to our newest police officer. And last but not least, participated also on the bonding tour presentation that we had. So I was there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Moving along then, our administration report. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I'll ever get the idea of the Blue Lake product out of my head. Your explanation was striking. I do have one thing I wanted, and I should have done this months ago and keep forgetting about it, but I wanted to congratulate Heidi Emerson, who received her certified municipal court designation, certified municipal clerk designation back in September. My apologies, I've had this in my folder to keep, and I just saw it and decided I better recognize her finally. A very long process to get that designation, and under Lori's tutelage, Heidi now has that, and so congratulations to her. And that is all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item number 12, Counselor Lehman, other business?
I don't think I have any. Well, I have a question, but I'll bring it up with staff about the clothes washer for the fire guys. Do they dry them too? Or do they hang dry them, or?
It's not a clothes washer, it is a
Turnout gear.
turnout gear, so it's a special washer for the
Them heavy.
heavy coats and,
How do they hang dry them or
we can find out, I have no idea.
Refuge or something.
gotta weigh a ton after they're all wet?
Yeah, I'm not
Just to
sure.
follow up on that, and then there was an interesting article about from a childhood friend who was the former fire chief in Eden Prairie, wrote an editorial in the Star Tribune and talking about firefighter danger and carcinogenics, and actually it talked about the gear and the stuff that gets on that, and then all of a sudden, ironically, we're looking at buying a washer type for the turnout gear. So, very informative article on something again that you don't think of. You know, those firefighters do a great job, but then, you know, they bring that stuff home and it's in them, and interesting how it all tied together. So thanks for that. Any other business, Counselor?
I would
White?
like to offer, maybe we can do it as a resolution, but congratulations to Heidi Emerson, our staff, for reaching that point in her career. I think that's appropriate that maybe the council congratulate her. So I'll offer that as a resolution if the staff wants to put that together and bring it forward next time, or just send our regards at least.
I would,
Counselor Lehman?
I would just like us to be consistent with whatever else we've done for other staff members that have achieved.
Yeah, well, we should
I would
look
just
into
ask
that.
staff to be consistent across the board.
Yeah, I think our staff is, I believe, constantly going to training. Different certificates you can win for your different departments, and I think that is great, and I very much appreciate employees that want to work on their development, and, but I think if we, Counselor, if we went down that road, we'd, you know, be doing that.
It's low-hanging fruit,
all
I
the
think
time.
would be great to encourage staff, but you're right, it does create an issue, but that is a very difficult one to achieve. But
I think staff is fully capable of bringing forward what is consistent with what staff has
Right.
done in the past.
Very good. Any other business before this board? Counselor Brennan?
Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn to Wednesday, November 6th, 2019 at 7 PM.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Brennan, second by Counselor Contreras. Further discussion? Discussion?
Mayor.
Counselor Lehman?
The 169 Corridor Coalition is contemplating doing their 10-year banquet on that same evening, and I'm trying to convince them that we have a council meeting that same night.
Have you been on that board 10 years?
I have, on and off,
Right.
either as a second or as a primary.
Right. Okay.
We're going to meet tomorrow morning, and hopefully we're going to discuss this again, because I'd really like to be at both, but I don't think that's possible.
Keep us informed, let's
And, you know, if anybody from the city wanted to be at that 10-year banquet, well, we're all going to be at a council meeting. And we are one of the bigger members, I guess,
right,
of,
yeah.
with the biggest interests, one of the bigger interest of the corridor, 169 Corridor Coalition. So see how that goes, and I'll let you know. Probably let you know by
The
email.
venue
through
here, and
Mr.
then you can run back and forth.
I'll let you know by email with Mr. Reynolds, because we're going to discuss it tomorrow, and we're not going to be able to talk about it until after our next meeting, so.
Okay. So motion on the table and a second, further discussion, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned at 8:44.